Good evening. It is October 21st, 2024. I'll call the meeting to order at 7:07 p.m. For the Milton School Building Committee. As always, I'll take a roll call attendance, starting with Mark Loring.
Here.
John Cohane.
Here.
Glenn Hoffman.
Here.
Carrie Hurley.
Here.
Scott Tereshak online.
Here.
Waiting to see it. There we go.
Sean, did you say my name?
Sir.
Okay, I'm online right now. I'm en route to you.
Okay, but you're present, right?
Correct.
Correct. That's all I needed. Thank you. So we got a quorum. All right. Second thing on the agenda is citizen speak. So we ask any member of the public that wishes to speak, please raise your hand on the Zoom, or if you're in person, which we do not have anyone, come forward. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes and state your name and address. So we'll give it a minute, see if anybody raises their hand. Seeing none. All right, moving on. Agenda item number three is approval of past minutes from Monday, September 30th, 2024, our last meeting. So in your packets that everybody got, we all got copies of that. So just see if anybody has any questions, edits, comments, and then if not, we'll entertain motions to approve after everybody has their chance.
I'll make a motion to approve the school building committee meeting minutes for September 30th, 2024.
Second by Glenn. Any discussion? Seeing none. We'll do a roll call vote. Mark Loring.
Yes.
John Cohane.
Yes.
Glenn Hoffman.
Yes.
Carrie Hurley.
Can I abstain? I was not.
Yep. And Scott Tereshak.
Yes.
And Tim Lombard.
Yes.
And Sean O'Rourke. Yes. All right. Moving right along. Agenda item number 4. So old business, 4A is a schematic design update, and it basically a review of an estimate set. So this week we had sent a kind of updated schematic design to the estimator again to kind of get another revised number to kind of hone in from the 173 that we're at before, and just kind of get a better idea or kind of where we're at with the further detail we have on the documents. And then also the time, the timeline's now gone a little bit longer. So that plays into the escalation for what they're looking at. So I believe Shanali is going to share her screen and walk through, or are you having Seamus do it?
I think Seamus should do it, just so we can minimize lag. And then I'll do a quick introduction, and then Andrew and I can present the pages. So as Sean said, we sent the estimator the drawings on Friday, along with a detailed narrative outlining the MEPFP and structural design intentions, along with the code report that finds all of the things that we need to look out for as we're moving along in the design. And we've identified all of those, and it's reflected in the schematic drawings. So you'll have a level of specificity.
Yeah, can you hold for 1 second, Shanali?
Sure.
So Andrew, Scott, can you guys see anything being presented right now? Because on my screen, it's just a single line.
I just see a line down the
I
middle.
cannot.
Yeah, I only see one.
Don't go full screen, just keep it normal. Easily. There you go. There we go.
Thanks.
Yes,
That looks
good.
So all of those comments from the code report are reflected in the plans. In addition to the architectural plans, we have civil drawings and landscape drawing identifying all the components and the design which you saw previously, and we updated, so everything is starting to get coordinated. The biggest thing that you'll see in the schematic set that Andrew's going to talk about is all of the site work and coordination that we've been doing. As you all know, it's not a flat site. The high school field is about 15 feet above what we're calling first floor grade elevation, and Andrew's going to walk you through sort of how we've resolved that, which I hope you think is in a really interesting way that sort of pushes the design. Andrew, feel free to jump in, but we've also updated the plans that he's going to walk you through to show how all the adjacencies have been being developed, along with loading, trash, all of those sort of back of house things. Mark, I think we've tried to address all of your comments from the last school building committee meeting.
Yeah, I can
Thanks.
jump in. And I might do a little annotating along the way as we go. But yeah, as Shanali said, I think a lot of the effort between the prior cost estimate and this one, or one significant piece, is in the site work, which in the prior round was probably carried more as a square foot cost. But here now we've done a lot to coordinate between the architecture, the civil, and the landscape, and importantly to simplify the approach. Where I'll walk you through, but we've greatly reduced the number of linear feet of retaining wall that was in the prior round. Maybe, okay, Seamus, could you, so this, I'll do a quick, it'll be kind of like a page turn, and then I'll dive in on some of them in more detail. And if anyone has questions along the way, feel free to ask. But this is the existing location of Gile Road on this sheet. And if you go to the next one, this is showing the proposed Gile Road, which we're all aware of. Let's go to the next. This is showing, sorry, yeah, some of the grading that will happen downslope of Gile Road, but staying outside of the 25-foot non-disturbance zone in the wetlands, and indicating subsurface location for stormwater drainage. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, there. Yeah. Utilities plan. Let's keep going. We can keep going. Keep going. Okay, so here's a site plan, which we'll see in a few different, this is on the civil, we'll see this again in the landscape plans and in the architectural. But one thing that I'll just start to point out is that I think we talked about this in the last meeting, but we've kind of drawn it out now and coordinated, but we're basically using the, call it the east edge of the building, using that foundation as the retaining wall, whereas in earlier iterations, there was sort of the building and then a space and then another retaining wall. And we found that this is a much sort of more straightforward and efficient way to handle the grading that needs to happen adjacent to the field. Let's go to the next one. And I think, I guess I'm trying to get to the landscape plan, which should be any second now. Yes, this one here. Okay. And could you zoom in a little bit, Seamus, just so we can kind of, yeah, that's great. I'd like to see the pre-K and the middle school together. Yeah. So just spend a couple minutes on this to kind of walk everyone through where we're at. So one of the things that we were able to do was have, the entry to the building coming off of the parking area off of Gile Road. You enter on the first floor, and then, as we had discussed in the prior meeting, that there's a double height stair space that brings you up to a second floor landing which then spills out onto this level. So on this plan, you're kind of seeing two levels on the north side of the building. That's the first floor level, and on this eastern edge here, that's really at the second floor. And this is just meant to show how Jade and Terra Inc. are thinking about starting to landscape this space. And what's nice about this is that we're using the natural grade and the kind of natural berm that exists around the athletic fields to create an accessible walking path that kind of curves around here and then eventually meets up again with the sidewalk that leads up to the high school and also to the entry into the athletic field, which we think is working out nicely. And then I'm going to clear that drawing for a second. And then what we're also looking at doing is sort of extending the foundation wall of the building as I'm drawing here, and that's serving as a retaining wall. So really there's the retaining wall that exists now is really just from here to here. The rest is the retainage is done by the building itself. And then all of the remaining grading that's happening is happening with the slope. And there are a couple of areas where there might need to be some reinforcement of the slope. And there's a number of ways to do it, but it's what it is not is a concrete retaining wall. So you might recall that previously we had a retaining wall that was back along this edge, sort of at that 50-foot offset from the southerly property line. But we can do this, we believe, with the grading. So we feel like it's a simple and kind of good place to be, where the moves that we're making to deal with the grading that's required. Also something that we've developed since the last time on the landscape plan, you'll see a little bit more grading happening to the east, which gives, we needed a little bit more play space for the pre-K building, which this will allow for. It seems to be a good balance. And one thing I'll point out also on this plan, but we'll probably go into more detail on the architecturals, is that we have worked to sort of develop this space, which I'm circling now. And actually, maybe Seamus, you could zoom in on that. Great. Previously, we had a receiving sort of trash and receiving zone located here in the building, which we all agreed was problematic because it would mean that there was sort of, this sort of desirable plaza for spill out space, and then the occasional need for trucks to come in and make deliveries or pick up trash. So what we've done is taken this piece of program and moved it to the end of the building that's off of Gile Road, and are looking at putting receiving and a loading area up there. And if you zoom out, Seamus, I'll just point out where that is, and then when we get into the architectural drawings, I can call it out a little bit more clearly. So that's just to say, previously I was circling that spot, and we've done is move that to this spot. So the idea being that loading and receiving can happen coming off of Gile Road into this area, which clears out that space between pre-K and the middle school to allow it to really just be student focused instead of dealing with deliveries. Shonali, did I miss anything on this landscape plan? Anything else you want to?
Just one thing I wanted to touch on between landscape is that between our civil engineer and our landscape engineer and ourselves, Gile Road is not flat. And so they worked really hard to grade the new Gile Road so that as you come in, that you can enter in at the 55 first floor grade level, and to make all of that really accessible.
Yeah,
so the north side of Gile Road is a little bit higher than that 55, which helps us with that pathway that's occurring on the second floor and ending up closer to the high school. So we're taking advantage of all of these slopes, but still able to maintain accessible routes without steep slopes, so that those who have mobility issues or have concerns about traversing the site are still able to do so easily. The other thing that I wanted to point out about the loading and the receiving, just to emphasize something that Andrew said, is by moving the loading and receiving to that north side, that's the quieter side of the site. Excuse me. So we are eliminating that cross traffic between loading and receiving, because you're going to get food deliveries every day, and you're not going to have any crossover between those trucks that could occur in the morning when the students are getting dropped off. So it becomes a much safer place for all the smaller children and the parent drop off.
Thanks. Let's go to the next. So this is just to point out that you could zoom in a little bit more, probably, Seamus, but this is looking at parking and traffic flow and signage that we've worked through with the traffic consultant, showing areas of crosswalks and so forth. But the sort of the main gist of it is that the flow for parent drop off is in this direction, and students can kind of cross here to the front door, or they can cross here and kind of work back this way. But the point Shanali was just making about the efforts we went through to make as flat of a grade as possible is, this zone that I'm going to kind of hatch here is all very, very flat. And that has to do with the coordination we were able to do across the consultants to kind of make that work out, creating a nice sort of safe and flat zone to arrive to. Okay, we can go to the next. Next, please. Next. So here, if we zoom in a little bit, is an architectural site plan, and there's two sheets of this. The first sheet, and if you just zoom out enough to get both buildings, Seamus, that would be great. This sort of gray hatch that you're seeing is sort of what's below grade, where we've kind of sliced the drawing. So it's just to kind of make that point again of at the first floor level, the building is really acting as a retaining wall for the earth that's here. And then if you go to the next sheet, you'll see here we're looking at it from sort of bird's eye view, top down, seeing the roof scape of the middle school and the pre-K, and you can see the sort of elevated area here that we talked about in the path that was on the landscape plan. Okay, we can go to the next. So, all right. So this, these should be pretty familiar by now, but these are sort of just updated program plans. In general, all of the large chunks of things have stayed where they have last been seen, and I will walk through the enlarged floor plans, I think, in more detail, but a couple of, maybe Seamus, just zoom in on the first floor to start, and I'll just kind of do a high level. So this kind of grayish zone along here and along back here, this is sort of back of house pieces that provide support to the building, and they're also the area that's adjacent to that retaining wall. Along the north side with access to light and windows, we've got the world languages and some special education programs located there. The front door is in this location, which is flanked by the administration and medical programs. And that sort of gives way, this sort of public space gives way to the cafeteria, which is an orange cafeteria and kitchen here. And then as you move to the left on the plan, we have the sort of music programs blocked out here on the south side. So we've got the 350 seat auditorium the stage / drama room, the band ensemble room, and the chorus room. And then we've got piano lab here. So we've kind of been able to group all the music programs together. And then on the sort of northwest corner, we have the gym with locker rooms and the cardio space kind of blocked together there, this is not new. This is just reorienting everybody. If we pan over to the right, or sorry, left, yeah. This is the second floor, and as we had talked about, this sort of central knuckle of the building is where you move vertically from that entry space up and to a large landing, which lets you out into that landscape space that we were talking about previously. It also gives you access to either the media center and guidance programs, which I'm circling there, or the arts and one of the tech STEM rooms, or one of the teams, which is at that end there. So it sort of gives you these sort of three directions that you can travel from there to hit those different kind of areas of the building. And then let's just pan up to one of the other two floors, which have very similar layouts, but just a reminder again that we've got the three teams, one on each end and one in the middle with the special education programs interspersed. Okay, so let's go to the next. Great. So these drawings are getting a bit more technical in nature, and if we zoom in, just to kind of orient you to the types of things that we've drawn through now. So we were looking at those colored diagram plans for a long time while we were making big moves. Now we've gone through and started to account for actual wall thicknesses, doors, door swings. We've done reviews of the fixture counts for the bathrooms based on the code review we did with our code consultant, making sure that we're providing the right number of toilets and lavatories and sinks, et cetera, on each floor for the various programs. And we're just sort of sharpening the pencil, so to speak, on how all of these things start to come together. Let's see, if you just pan to the sort of top of the plan quickly and zoom in on that, I can just point out the loading and receiving area that we were talking about before. So here, this is a loading area that we're imagining could be recessed so that it's somewhat protected from weather. We're not currently thinking of this as a loading dock. It's not that there's an elevated plane that's 3 feet up from the bed of a truck, but it is an area where deliveries can be dropped off on a pallet and brought in to the building and then distributed. And so these areas here are all sort of back of house supporting sort of support spaces for the building. And let's see, can we pan back towards the main space? So I will, and tell me if I'm getting too in the weeds for everyone or not, but I will sort of walk you through a little bit. So here's our entry in our sort of main office, which allows you to sort of check in and either pass through the office and back out once you've been checked in, depending on how it's being, how they're running that. And then we've got the sort of main circulation space in the knuckle. This here is our cafeteria space with a lunch breakout space, which is for quiet eating and potentially could be used as a conference area at different times. The servery for the kitchen is here. And moving along down the hall, we've got the entry to the auditorium located here. One of the things about the auditorium, which is useful and nice, is that you enter at the level of the of the first floor, and you then either can move up to some tiered seating or move down to some tiered seating. But in either case, you can move along the edges at that same level to get to the stage. And that allows for this to be a very accessible setup for the auditorium and for the stage and the drama room. Let's see. I think I will pause there on this level. Can go happy to go in more detail if anyone would like, but why don't we go up to the next page? One of the things we've also done a lot of work on is you'll notice there's all these grid lines that are in the drawings now, and we've looked at, getting those to be lined up with each other from floor to floor, which simplifies the structural system of the building. And we've reviewed that with our structural engineer to talk about, what he needs for it to be efficient. And so, I'm sure there's more coordination to be done in the next phase, but we're in a good place now for being at this stage of schematic design.
Andrew, would you like to point out some of the areas where we've highlighted sort of moments of the glazing?
Sure.
We didn't talk about it on the piano lab, but the idea is that the piano lab would have some glazing because it's an interior room, so it's going to get some light and transparency, and also a visual connection to the other music rooms. And then I know Andrew wants to talk about some of the glazing here that we've identified for pricing so that we can hold some numbers.
Yeah, so good point. So let's see, this area here, which is sort of where you arrive to at the top of the stair, which provides connection out, is something that we're imagining is more glassy than sort of let's say the standard exterior wall where the classrooms are, which is something that we're imagining is a masonry wall with punch openings. Whereas in a moment like this, where we're trying to create a very specific connection to the landscape, that would be more glass in that location. We also think that there's some opportunity along these art spaces and STEM and tech spaces to have it be somewhat more transparent, more sort of learning on display, something that you would be visible when you're approaching the building. That could be an area that's desirable for that. And then of course on the south side where we've got the cafeteria and media space, we're looking at more glazing in that area, and then to some extent some along this edge as well of the media to give us sort of the views out to the to the athletic field and the landscaped areas out there. And I think that's probably the main areas on this level.
That's the exterior glazing, and then we had some interior glazing of the media center overlooking the cafeteria.
Yep.
And then also there's that area at the end of the art corridor that overlooks the gym. So if you look at that stair on the left side, so there's glazing here so that those students who want to watch what's happening in the gymnasium.
Overlooking the gymnasium. Yes, sorry,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, so there's an overlook here, which is a nice little moment at the end of this corridor into the gym. And there's a moment here overlooking into the cafeteria, and here as well from media over to cafeteria. Why don't we go up to the next level? So another moment of interior glazing that we're thinking about is located here. This is a open to below space that for fire code reasons can't be connected. The air itself cannot be connected between them, but it can have a simple glass system that separates the two so that there would be overlook down into there. And then also this being on the south side of the building, we imagine would have more glass on this in this moment, which would allow light to stream into the sort of knuckle of the not only the floor, but also a sort of stream down to the lower levels, making a very sort of dynamic kind of hub of the building. And then if we go up to the fourth floor, it's a very similar layout. But again, this would be exterior wall glazing, letting in the light, and then there would be interior glazing here. Okay, and let's see, do we have additional sheets here, or this might be the last one. Roof plan.
Yeah, I think that should really be the last one. And we don't have to go page by page with the narrative that was included that Seamus sent, but it outlines the overall description of the architectural, the assumptions of things that we wanted to be included, to be priced, as well as some updated coordination on the metrics of what the exterior wall will be from an energy code perspective. So you'll see that and note that as well. And then structural and MEPFP obviously have updated because from the feasibility to now, we've relocated some of those back of house rooms that they rely on for their coordination. So they've updated their narrative effectively to reflect all of those changes. I think that's really like the big summation. You know, a lot of the work was that site work, that coordination with the consultants, getting a lot more specific about the footprint of the building and its location, and really working with what Guile Road sloping needs to be, making that parking work, and then transitioning across the site architecturally to make sure all these spaces fit.
Thank you. Any questions for anybody for what we're seeing there, just on the updated drawings or anything like that? Nothing.
I think just want to say, I think the redesign of the first floor to move the storage to the other end is great. I think fantastic, addresses a lot of those issues that were originally caused in terms of just, ensuring we have a nice, safe student kind of outdoor gathering area. So thank you for looking into that. With that move, did we sacrifice any square footage for, make the mechanical space tighter, or the electrical stuff, or, building storage, anything like that?
No, we're still
Right,
we're still pretty close to the original square footage from the space summary. Excuse me, we're still working with the requirements of the exterior and the thickness of that wall, which is sort of putting a lot of pressure on our gross square footage. And we're hoping in the DD, once we get a little bit more specific with the metrics and we actually run an energy model, that we're going to have that next level of precision so that we can get back to the 154. We're very close, slightly over, but we haven't sacrificed the function or the utility of any of the spaces. Just some of that pressure is coming from that exterior wall thickness that's forcing us. We did get a little bit of savings once we moved the back of house space to those more orthogonal spaces on the first floor. So we got a lot more efficiency with the dimensioning of some of those rooms, which did help us. And then when the team went through and organized the building footprint, specifically the academic wing, we were able to tighten up quite a bit. And we're looking to do that next iteration in the DD phase. As we go through, the object is to keep getting tighter and tighter as more information comes in.
All right, Scott, you hand raise?
Yeah, the progress looks really great. So thank you very much. One thing I think you might have mentioned last time was the potential of eliminating one of the three stairs. I don't know if you have had a chance to look into that or if that's going to be the next phase.
So we would love to eliminate one of the stairs. We're keeping it in right now because um, as Andrew knows, I can get into the weeds about code, but basically your floor levels have more than 500 occupants, or it's 498, and 500 is your threshold of needing three stairs. And we're just one or two people short of that 500, that it's really much safer, I think, from a pricing perspective to keep that third stair in. And as I said before, as we get tighter and tighter with the footprint, maybe we get down to like a 450. I don't know if that's possible, but just for people's edification, the way you calculate the occupancy of a floor is not based on the actual number, it's on the potential numbers. So the potential numbers of people that will occupy that floor just forces that number to be much higher. And Massachusetts has really strict egress codes, and we don't want to do anything that gives the air of unsafeness, especially for young kids. So we're keeping that for now.
I think eliminating the third stair would cause functional problems for the school.
I agree. There is, because it's a long
Two stairs would
distance.
be too much. That's the problem with Pierce now. You have traffic jams going to lunch, and
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to avoid, right? Get rid of.
Yeah.
I had a quick question about the glazing, twofold actually. One, I'm not assuming. I don't know if you're planning on using storefront or more like a cheaper hollow metal type glazing for the interior, if that's even been decided. And I was also wondering if it was a code reason we were putting glazing at all at that knuckle. You had mentioned interior glazing between that floor opening.
Yeah. So
Is that
yeah, I mean, at this
a
stage,
reason or a functional reason, or
it's a code reason. It's
Okay.
because basically there is a series of openings on the second floor, third floor, and fourth floor. So they're all connected. And if you wanted them to be fully open to each other, where the air actually could mix from the third floor to the first floor, then
like an atrium almost? Yeah.
It would be an atrium. Yeah.
It'd be an atrium, and you'd have to have smoke evacuation
Understood.
equipment and all that stuff. So,
And that would have an added expense. That would probably be more expensive than the glazing, so I get it.
Correct.
for sure, yeah, it would, and it actually, it can. We've done this before, and it can be a pretty nice setup where you have the feeling of connection and openness, but you also have some sound insulation between the levels. So you get the light and the sense of connection without it being sort of overly connected, and then you're not having to have this extra equipment for the smoke evacuation.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to follow on to that too, Andrew. So that kind of void that occurs between the levels there, is that just an architectural feature, or is it a functional one? I'm just wondering, could that be filled in? If we started seeing that we need additional space for something.
I think the answer is yes, it could be filled in, but you'd be adding area to the building. So, part of the, as Shonali mentioned, we're really sort of right on the line of where we want to be. And if you were to sort of say, well, let's make that into a room, then we would be adding however many, probably it's a couple thousand square feet or so, maybe a little less, that's getting added to the building. And I think, it's a very efficient kind of layout of a building. And so it would be kind of to the detriment of the one space where there's, a lot of character, and it's sort of the one orienting space in the building. So, it's both those things, and that it is architectural. It does, I think, add to the experience of the space, and it does a lot for light and, giving the students a sense of community. But yes, you could fill it in and add to the overall square footage.
Okay. I'll just ask one other one. Well, I got the mic. So looking at the site plans for stormwater retainage, there seemed to be an anticipation to utilize the parking lots for stormwater retainage or tanks. And I'm
Right.
trying to, yeah, so that with geothermal wells, how is that accomplished? And if we haven't coordinated that yet, that's fine. It's just something I noted.
Yeah, so it's not, we don't have a layout for the geothermal wells at this point. In, you know, we've been talking about whether the wells would be best located to the south underneath the pre-K parking area or to the north or some combination of the two. I think that the amount of stormwater retainage area, you know, that you saw kind of laid out on that civil plan was a pretty small percentage of the overall area that's available. So I don't know that they're mutually exclusive, but it's definitely, you know, not something that's fully coordinated at this point.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, seeing none. So yeah, these set of documents that, you know, Arrow Street just went through with us, like I said, has gone to the estimator. So the estimator is going to kind of go through, do another estimate for us and basically hone in the number a little bit tighter from what we had before. So we'll be getting that the next couple of weeks, hopefully by our next meeting. When we talk about next meeting, at the end of the meeting, we'll try to figure out what the schedule for that is.
Yeah,
just so everybody knows.
Sorry, that's a
Yep.
good point. Peter does need the full 3 weeks. I know for the feasibility, he shaved a week off for us, which was really kind of him. But in our last conversation, you know, because the plans are so much more detailed than before, it's going to be a full 3 weeks. So we should keep that in mind.
Okay, that works. Just for everybody's information too, I have to present to the warrant committee tonight. So Mark, if I have to leave at like 10-15 minutes, excuse me, Mark will take over and kind of run the meeting in my absence. So moving forward, item 4B, which is MSBA update, early costs and schedule comparisons. So one of the big things we've always talked about with MSBA for a number of years is if we got accepted to MSBA, comparing the reimbursement that we would get against the anticipated escalation of restarting over. So, you know, just to frame the work that I asked PMA to work on is essentially right now we have a program, we have a design, we have cost estimates, we have everything there ready to go. Essentially, once we get funding and stuff like that, it would basically be what would our timeline be to complete the project? And what is that dollar value? And currently it's 173 million. So what we did is we took the program for that 173 million. We looked at our reimbursement rate of 45% for MSBA and said, what is eligible, what is ineligible, to look at what that diluted or effective rate is. So obviously we always knew it was going to be below 45%. So Sean and Seamus are going to walk through how they came out to essentially what that true reimbursement number is. And then that reimbursement number we then used against a 6 or 7 year timeline, which we know if we go with MSBA, it'd be a longer timeline from where we are now. What they're looking to do for that is take the overall project and assume a certain escalation across there and look at how much the project may increase in cost against how much we would get in reimbursement if we went with MSBA. And basically use that to see, does it make sense to go with MSBA, hit reset and start over, or just keep going ahead with what we're doing? While it might be more, it seemed like more money at the beginning right now, because we're not realizing the reimbursement from MSBA, we're alleviating ourselves from all the construction escalation over that 7 year period. If that frames it up good enough, good. I will let you gentlemen take it away.
Everyone's seeing this on the screen?
Yeah, it's on this one.
Great. So, yeah, like Sean introduced, we ran through kind of the feasibility study estimate that we did back in July. We used that as the basis to kind of throw together an MSBA budget, if you will. So the MSBA has really big and complicated, total project budget sheet that you have to fill in.
Yeah, and just for clarity, you didn't develop this. This is an
This is an
MSBA.
MSBA
Correct.
product, yeah.
Okay.
We,
Yeah.
we just entered the data. So the MSBA makes you put in all your budget stuff that comes straight from the estimate that we did in July. And then also, pull out some ineligible square footage that the MSBA, says, okay, this bucket will reimburse, this bucket we will not. So we, as a team, PMA and Aerospace kind of went through the, initial space summary and we kind of did that exercise, assuming we're the MSBA, kind of made some assumptions. Nothing's concrete because the MSBA kind of make their own decisions. Each project is kind of unique. So we made all the assumptions that kind of we see typical most projects that pull out some ineligible costs. And bottom line, total project budget of the project is the same as the estimate that we're throwing around, the roughly 173 million.
Could you just zoom in on it, too,
Yeah.
just so people online can sure that.
So this,
Yep.
this one right here, 173 million. With that and the reimbursement rate that I know, Mark, you mentioned, was at the walkthrough, they threw out a number of 45.32.
Yep.
So with some assumptions, green energy, schools and some like other reimbursement stuff,
So just to touch on that. So the way MSBA works is they have their published rate that we know is 45%. They have additional reimbursement points that you can get on there for certain things. For example, energy efficiency, stuff like that we were doing, geothermal being all electric. So by doing some of them, they make us eligible for a little bit of a higher rate. Yep.
so that's what we assumed, and we assumed it would push us up to about a 49.22 reimbursement rate. So anything that is eligible would be reimbursed at that rate.
Mhm.
Over here, these columns here kind of calculate the total project cost, what portion of it is eligible, what portion of it isn't, and then what you would be looking at for MSBA reimbursement.
So total project budget is 161 million.
Yep.
Excluded number is 63 million.
161 is not including contingencies. That's based without contingencies, and then the scope 63 million.
Yep.
Yep.
So the number that you're basing the reimbursement on is 97,694.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then there are some other caps on, certain portions of the building that only cap to a certain percentage or square footage. But bottom line is, for kind of the feasibility study estimate, we anticipated roughly 48 million in MSBA reimbursement potential. So that would be 173 total project costs, but you might get 40, 47, 48 million back, which, advertised rate of 45.3, but the effective reimbursement rate for the project is only about 25.
28%.
That 28% seems pretty consistent through a lot of the projects we do. So if you take the number that your advertised rate versus what you end up getting, that's about what we calculate. It's not 28%, but it's the difference between the published rate and the calculated rate works out to about the same on most of the projects that we're on, and it's right about that range.
And so that was step one. The next step was kind of calculating what would happen if the project was delayed a year, 2 year, 3 year. So this is where we are now. An MSBA project, like you when you let off mentioned, the MSBA project would push us back maybe 3, maybe 4 years, maybe even beyond. And so using the assumption that each year delay would have the same escalation, again, which I pulled from the feasibility estimate. I can go to the summary page, which kind of highlights it better. I put together just the same 3011 document for each year that we are delayed in the project and recalculated any of the ineligible costs just to try to keep it somewhat consistent. And bottom line is this summary sheet over here.
Zoom in.
And so, total project cost, you can see it going up each year, obviously for escalation, each year the project gets more expensive. And then here's just the add differential from the base year. And then the amount of NSBA reimbursement only goes up by a little bit, but is well outpaced by the added project cost of the town.
So the second row added cost to the project is the escalation. It's not in addition to the 182.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Yes.
And then when you take the reimbursement minus the cost of the project, you can see that the amount that the NSBA will pay back to the project kind of gets diluted. And so if you consider the project going beyond 6 years delayed due to the NSBA, the project gets more than $48 million more expensive. And so it's almost, in those scenarios, it might be less beneficial to go with the MSBA.
With the MSBA rate, I just find it hard to believe the MSBA rate doesn't go up more than that.
Yeah, we talked about this at the meeting. We can't guarantee a rate increase. They actually had 2 this year, which is unheard of.
No, I don't mean the rate itself. I mean the percentage of the construction cost.
The cost per square foot.
That 48,000 should be going up more.
It might go, but it might not. So, in years, they have had stretches of 4 to 5 years in the
Where they
past
don't do
where they
anything.
haven't gone up anything. And then like this year, they went up twice because of COVID, and then they had like a Recovery Act money that got funded. So there's different scenarios. We likely, yes. So we will investigate that further, see what the average increase would be year over year. We can build that in as well.
Yes,
But, yeah, I mean, just on that point, isn't it 45% off of whatever our construction project would be, right? 173, so the construction project was actually 190, it's 45% of 190.
no, because the NSBA has a lot of caps for like site work caps,
Gotcha.
building square footage caps. So I think in this detail here, one of these blue buttons, so building eligible funding limit. So it's this, this number right here is what Sean just mentioned. They increased it twice this year. The last time they increased it was, I think, 4 months ago.
Let's go with the increase in December. So it'll be twice this year, but that's $586 per square foot.
Yeah.
So if they do not increase that value, they will not give you more money as the building goes up, because that's the reimbursement rate. It's based on the square footage, percentage of the building. Right. So that's where the capping at. So if they don't increase that, you don't get more money. They have to increase that in order to
They're giving you a reimbursement rate based on the 586 per square foot.
Just for people online. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, they're exactly, John. They're giving you a percentage of the 586. So if they don't increase that, then your overall grant will go up marginally as it shows, but it won't go up significantly. Right. If they bring that number up to 600 and then 615 over the year, that's where you're going to see the major increase in the grant value. So
Yes.
we'll take a look at that. We did look at it, but like I said, there have been stretches over years where 3 to 4 years, they have zero, they haven't increased it at all. Inflation escalation typically outpaces what the MSBA gives you, but we'll determine that. We can show a slide on that. This is our initial kind of first broad brush strokes of trying to figure out what is the difference between doing it with the MSBA and without the MSBA. The other caveat to this is that the MSBA may make you design the building slightly differently. They may make your classrooms be larger. There's standards that they have that you don't necessarily have to adhere to if you do a non-MSBA project. So I think we were talking to the design team about it. They may make your building bigger. If they make the building, if they force the building to be bigger because classroom sizes are going up, and you still want those extra world language classrooms that they're not going to give you money for, then it's going to increase the project even more, and their reimbursement rate is going to stay roughly the same.
All right, Scott, you get your hand raised.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, I was just going to ask a question about the reimbursement rate. Since it's such a long period of time to go through the MSBA process, do they lock in, we'll use the 586 as an example, do they lock in that rate at some point in time, or do they allow that to increase over the lifespan of a 6 or 7 year project?
So your total project budget is locked in at the end of, it would actually be the end of SD phase we're at. The MSBA would do a submission with a completed budget like this, like we did. They'd sign off on it, the town would sign off on it, and that's what locks in your total project budget. And so that would basically at SD, which is still probably year and a half before you, well, about a year before you bid, everything would be locked in. Then you go on to design development and 60%, construction documents and then bidding. But you're locked in at schematic design with the MSP.
Have bids been coming in pretty close to that locked in number, or are they still coming in high? I know they used to come in high all the time, and we have to value engineer everything out.
Meaning above their reimbursement rate?
Yeah, no, about the project costs, have bids been coming in relatively close to the budget, or?
I think it's less bag still. Some projects will see, you'll see them in the paper, they're $10 to $15 million over there.
Over, yeah.
We've had some pretty good luck, making sure our estimates are robust, and I don't think we had any major overages on any of our recent projects, but it's not.
Yeah, and I know the estimator that they're using, PMC, has been trying to hit exactly on the money, so they don't want to overestimate anything, expecting things lower. They want to hit it exactly, and they've been having some success with that. And I know it's always a moving target, but they've.
On that summary page, we would be, these escalations would occur until the start of construction. Once you sign a contract, they're stopped.
Once the contractor bids, it would be it's a hard bid, yes.
Our estimator figures for start of construction. So his assumption, when we get an estimate from estimator, he's assuming a start date and that the contractor has whatever escalation through the course of the project is already built into the price up front. So that's how we do it the same way. It's really this most simple way to do it rather than trying to figure it out. But once they put in the bid, that's it. That's your number.
Yeah.
Good question. Just a reminder, this is your previous experience. Once a district is invited by MSBA, how long does it take before we get to that locked number approximately?
Probably to get to the lock-in budget, I think it's 2 years.
At least 2 years.
It would take a couple months to bring, you have to hire an OPM, then you have to, so it depends on how quickly the district goes through this process. I think they have a year in order to get the project team formed. Hopefully you do it a lot faster than that, but as soon as you hire an OPM, you get an architect on board, you get to SD, you can probably do it within 2 years. And that locks in your grant, and then you have to design the building and get it out to bid. And then it's kind of a race against time, against escalation as well.
Because we would have to do all the steps that we've done up to this point.
You would have to, yes. I haven't heard of a district that started and then been entered in and then been allowed to continue. It's certainly a question that you can and should ask, but it is not a given. Their policy by statute doesn't really allow that.
Seems worth asking. I'm just stirring this in my head. We'd actually be saving them money by doing it, right? By not going backwards.
I don't disagree with you.
Right? I've never heard of it either, but I just wonder if it's worth asking.
I mean, they have their program, right? They want, I assume they want to prevent people from trying to, circumvent the selection process through the MSBA, through their designer selection panel on their OPM board. So I understand that they have a process, they have a system, and if you want into their program, you follow their system.
It seems like Arrow Street has been pretty diligent about sticking to MSBA standards, from what I can tell anyway.
Well, I know that our classroom sizes are our classroom room sizes are slightly under MSBA standards because we've taken that classroom space and kind of traded it for some other space, which the MSBA does allow you to do. But if I'm remembering correctly from my space summary, their minimum is they go from 850 to 950 and the grade 825. So they may require you to bump up every classroom by 25 square feet, which either changes the design of your building or makes everything bigger.
So MSBA, because we submitted the project as a K through 5 school problem, the MSBA has indicated, they did this in the walkthrough, that that is what we're applying for. And so they're not going to, all indications are they're not going to let us just move forward with an upper middle school project. They're going to make us go through the design process and problem-solving process that y'all
That
did
we've already done.
again,
They will-
in order to, I guess,
Prove our case
convince
again.
them that the upper middle
Yeah.
school is the best way to address the elementary school overcrowding issue, even though at this point we also know the overcrowding issue is up here, but just the way we have to submit the statement of interest we said for Cunningham.
So we'd really be starting over.
They may get to do a code upgrade study at Cunningham, if that's your school, an ad reno at Cunningham, a new school at Cunningham, and then multiple different options for middle schools as well.
This is a useful sheet, thank you, Seamus. Who's the audience or what's the use for that sheet?
This is mostly just for you guys.
Just for us?
But yeah, I know, Sean said he was kind of expecting feedback from the MSBA sometime at the end of, November, to kind of see if you guys are gonna be going, into their, board of directors meeting in December. And so it kind of is just information for the town.
Yeah, I was just curious, like, if somebody looks at that, they may misunderstand that there is a benefit to the town to waiting 3 years. If you look at the bottom
Oh,
line.
yeah.
And the thing that sheet doesn't contemplate is the expense that the town would go to continue to conduct business in the school system as the population continues to increase. That number is not shown there. And if it were, I think it would be nearly immediately or within 1 year a negative number and not 3 years out.
Yeah, it doesn't consider modular.
We're talking about modulars and other
Modulars, additional, whatever, an addition or gutting the attic space. The town is currently going to an expense to address this, but that seems to be increasing.
Yeah, if given that information, we could certainly add it, but I mean, our goal here was, Sean asked us to say, take the building, take the estimate, run it through an MSBA scenario, and then run it out time so that we can see, all right, does it make sense to wait? If it does, what's kind of the tipping point of how long does it make sense?
Yeah,
to
at some
go
point in
front
time,
and
we
forth?
looked at the cost for modulars and it was not insignificant.
Yeah, they're expensive.
Yeah, to bridge that gap of time. And if we increase that gap of time, I think this turns negative very quickly. Rather than depicting a benefit to the town of waiting 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, us, we're just trying to be, I know there are people who are for project, people against it. We're just trying to, hear the numbers and
No,
any other,
exactly.
yeah, any other data that you can put on top of that
Exactly what I'm looking
Yeah.
for, yeah.
is, should be done. It should be an exercise by, the school department or anyone else if there's a stopgap in between there, you can certainly add it to the equation.
Yeah, to make sure that we build other assumptions of what's happening, transpiring every year as we wait.
Yeah, doing nothing's
Yeah,
not free.
it's not really that.
And I think, I don't know, John, we had talked about if we stop now and brought the MSBA on, I think we figured 3 years would be at a minimum where it'd be a minimum of 3 years delayed in construction, right?
It depends on how long the eligibility period, modules 1 and 2 are,
Okay.
before they get to the point where they're rehiring and opening.
Yeah, maybe we should
That's
assign,
one
rather
year.
than like year 1, year 2, maybe we assign like the actual calendar year.
Yeah.
So instead of construction start 2027,
Yep.
construction start 2030.
I think that's a fair point because then you can really see how it affects, like if they're saying, oh, we'll just wait the year because the MSBA is here, but the reality is it's 3 years if you start,
Right.
if you get in this year, where does it leave the MSBA? I think that's a good data point that you should put there to kind of frame the conversation in the correct manner.
Yeah, right, because even these cells here, the 1 2 year delay wouldn't even be possible with the MSBA, just because of how long it takes.
They're already going to push the year.
Right.
More than likely, yeah. If they don't let you keep the same architect in OPM, that is a very likely scenario that you're going to be into OPM and architect selection probably for another 8 months to a year, and then another 2 years after that before you lock in your budget, and then another 2 years after that in design.
Did Eric speak up?
No.
I did see a question for them, but it's a minor one, but I was gonna say, if they're still listening, I noticed there's an NDF and IDF on level 1 and an IDF on levels 3 and 4, but nothing on 2. I didn't know if that was a miss or an intent to feed that forward from above to below. totally off the top of the list. I was trying to get that in.
Probably needs to be added in to level 2, but I would assume one on
Maybe
each
I
floor.
missed it. You'll say, oh, it's right here, 9 and 23.
I had one more question on this. Again, this gets back a little bit to conversations we were having earlier on, like some of the delays we're running into with getting out in front of voters, which is like, at what point is the $173 million actually no longer the right number? Because again, that was assuming we get in November. We're now talking maybe January, right? And
we went back and forth talking to John O'Rourke about this too, and said, should we wait until we get the next estimate, which is forthcoming?
Yeah.
And I think you said better off, we can just do it again. It's not that big an exercise. I mean, we've done it now with the 173. We'll see what the next estimate is, and we'll do it again. And then we'll do all the scheduling, and we can build in some scheduled dates, some years, some assumptions on start date of construction for both scenarios, and build a much broader, robust picture of this once we get that new estimate in a couple weeks. Because that'll tell you, right? If you went from 173 and you go up, then it's going up. If you go down, I don't think it's going to trend in the right direction, but at least we're kind of staying level. But that next set of estimate with the new drawings and with the more defined drawings is really going to tell us where we're at in a couple of weeks.
Any other questions on this?
Just the only other thing I would ask is, with those escalations, they're still gonna go down, because even at once the contract's awarded, they're not figuring every year on the full value, like this figures every year on the full value. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that would, like you said, when we put the dates there, if we put start of construction and put, fall of the spring.
Right.
The assumption is if you start construction on this date, this is what the project will cost. That's it. There's no, you're right, there's nothing beyond that. But you have to start on that date, and then we can put in what the MSBA process would, how far that would push you, and then you can make your assumption, you're gonna start.
It pushes us out, but yeah.
What is the estimate, just to remind everybody, for construction escalation is 4.5?
It's about 5 right now. I have it at 5.33.
Yeah, that's
the feasibility study estimate had.
They were carried the same as PNC was carried. And then we'll find out what its new number is.
Because that was one of the assumptions, was that 5.33 is just going to carry out all 6 years. It'll go up and down. I know they've said it's been trending down, but I don't know how far down it's been going.
Yeah, we will rely on whatever estimator saying we'll carry what they tell us to carry. Right? They have a lot more data on this than we do. And also, all that assumes that the MSBA, you get into their program this year.
Yeah.
Right?
Great. There's nothing else. We will move on to item 4C, which is review and approval of project invoices. Again, in the packet, we should have seen an invoice from PMA, invoice 009 for September, and an invoice from Arrow Street 004, also from September. Any questions on those invoices or any motions?
Motion to accept invoices on.
I think you gotta take it one at a time. We gotta just do it one at a time. So if you want to make a motion to approve PMA's invoice 009.
Sorry, what are the numbers?
PMA is 009, Arrow Street 004.
Motion to approve PMA invoice 009 and Arrow Street invoice 004.
Is there a second?
Second.
Great. Any discussion? No. All those in favor, we'll start in person. Tim?
Yes.
Selena?
Yes.
Just seeing who all is online. Did we lose Scott? Looks like we lost Scott. Okay. Keep going around.
John, yes.
Next.
Yes, Glenn.
Eric,
Carrie, yes.
Mark, yes. And we're good. Up next, new business. There's nothing under new business. Anything, Sean, from y'all? I think so. Okay. Moving on to item 6, future meeting dates, November 4th, November 11th. I assume this is a question for us, or are we trying to meet both? Oh, okay.
Hey, Scott Tarashak got
Yeah.
disconnected and rejoined as an attendee.
Great.
Did you upgrade him to a panelist?
Yes, I was wondering.
11 is that Wednesday?
Great.
And I was gonna bring it up, with what Janali mentioned earlier tonight, with, GMC needing the full 3 weeks. We probably won't have our estimate back by the 4th. So, Janali, is that correct? Would that be kind of a good assumption? We wouldn't have it back by the 4th?
No, I think it'll be if I do my math correctly, it would be the week after. Let me double check my calendar.
So is there any reason to meet on the 4th?
I don't think there's a reason to meet until we have the, estimate back from GMC. So
The following week is Veterans Day.
Yeah. So then, and we wouldn't expect the pricing probably until that next week anyways.
Yeah, it wouldn't be
So
until the week of the
18th
11th.
would be when we're trying to meet again.
Sounds like it.
Work and everybody else's schedule. Any reason not to do that day? Great. All right. Well, we'll do 7 o'clock on the November 18th. Be our next one, unless obviously you hear different from our fearless leader, Sean. And with that, we're on item number 7, which is adjournment. Take a motion.
I move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sean. All right. All those in favor, Tim,
Yes.
Selena,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.